Is this thing on?
Hello and welcome back to the Voice Podcast. I'm Brian and this is Tiffany.
Hi.
How's it going today, Tiffany?
Good. How are you, Brian?
I'm doing well. So
Awesome.
this is the SLC Voice Podcast, podcast by students, for students about campus life and things in the community. So Tiffany, how are things been going for you recently?
Good. Busy. Just like everybody else, we're kind of wrapping up work right now, getting ready for the new semester to start, and just trying to get ourselves organized.
Organized. That's a pretty important thing for a student and for someone working. So, like, where are you working these days? Like, how much does that entail of your life?
So right now I'm working at a family physician's office 40 hours a week, just getting ready for the school semester to start. But up until the pandemic started, I was working a lot more than that. I did have 3 jobs actually at one point. I was working 80 hours a week. So things were a little crazy there for a while, but
that's incredibly impressive. Like, how are you able to stay on track with all that?
I'm very organized. So actually that's what we're here to talk about today is some tips and tricks for students to stay organized. Organization is a big part of my life. Obviously working 80 hours a week, you've got to have some kind of system. I don't know about you, Brian. I am not by nature an organized person, so I have to work very hard at it.
Yeah, and as someone that's going to the accounting field, it's bad for me to say that I'm not that organized, but I'm definitely not. It's something that I've had to really fight through over my life to get better at, you know.
Yeah, well, what are some of the ways that you keep yourself on track?
Honestly, for me, it's scheduling and planning, right? Like, I've kind of picked up this little thing recently where I was listening to this podcast, School of Greatness, and he was talking about basically how one of the best things you can do is at the end of your night, you know, you kind of sit down and you make a plan for your next day and you kind of visualize it, you go through it, and that kind of gives you a bit of a framework to work off of. And I find it's a really helpful way to go about things. And, you know, it's like making a to-do list for like a day, a week at a time, and then working your way through. And just honestly giving yourself bonus extra time too. Like if you think something's going to take about an hour, you gotta give yourself like an hour and a half because you know you're going to have to spend at least 10 minutes on social media, sending some text out, things like that. So, you know, just giving yourself some leeway in that regard. So how about you? How do you stay organized?
I'm a big fan of like organizational apps. My calendar is my lifeline. Everything goes in my calendar. But sort of like you, I have review time for my productivity. And I think that is so key. You do yours every night. I tend to do mine once a week.
Okay.
You know, I do like a mini review, I guess, the night before, but my main planning time is usually on Sundays. And so I'll sit down and I'll look at my calendar. I'll see what's coming up, see what I need to do, plan out how my week's going to go. So, but my calendar is definitely the biggest one for me.
Interesting. And I can see that, especially when you're not going to have a lot of time, especially if you're working 2 jobs going between that. Now, how are you planning on scheduling that around school? Are there any kind of, you said some apps, are there any specific apps that you're planning on using going forward?
So 2 of the apps that I use the most for organization are Todoist and Evernote.
Okay.
So Todoist is a task managing application and Evernote is a note-taking application.
Oh, cool.
So they both have like lots of great features. They're very multifunctional, shareable between other people. So all of those are positive features for me, not just in my private life, but coming up into being a student. I feel like being able to share your productivity and your tasks and that kind of thing are very important because you're not always going to be working solo.
No, absolutely not. And like, thinking about working with teams and things, there's definitely some things you're going to have to be able to figure out to do. You know, like for me, looking forward, prioritizing is going to be one of the biggest things in my life. You know what I mean? Like thinking like, all right, you know, I have to do this, but do I really have to do this right now? Like trying to figure out sometimes like that and like building yourself an ability into your life to like have a safe space to work, so a place where you can actually relax and you can get to work and not have to be dealing with things. So like, you know, honestly for me, I have I'm not using it right now, unfortunately, because my Wi-Fi tapped out of me consistently, but I have an office set up upstairs where it's like a nice little zen space, you know, I have some nice tapestries on the walls, some plants growing. So I cannot wait until I get my new Wi-Fi system set up because I can actually be able to use that and get away from just, you know, kind of sitting here recording a podcast in my living room, which is actually not conducive to a student life, unfortunately. But what can you do?
Yeah. For sure. No, I agree. Having a designated workspace that's tailored to what helps you focus and relax, I think is a really important part of staying organized and being productive as well. So that's something that I think every student should consider, making sure that you have a designated area to work, and then you bring things into it that make you happy but don't distract you.
That's
I don't know about
absolutely.
you. I'm so distractible. I actually have to put my phone away when I know that I'm going to be working on something, because like social media just kills me. It sucks me in. It's like a vacuum.
I understand entirely, and it's interesting to say that. Like, I was it's really cool. I found this technique recently, and like, so I'm going to my second year, and one thing I noticed actually with classes is that they'll never really push you. Generally, it's like hour and a half, 2 hour classes, and generally like after about 60 minutes, they'll give us a break, because I think they realize that your brain isn't really set up to be able to, especially ingest and use new information for like long periods of time. You're naturally going to need to take a little break. And I was recently reading a study that basically about this technique called a Pomodoro technique, and it's really cool. Basically, like, you set yourself up into 25-minute timers, and what you do is you do like 25 minutes, and then you take like 5 minute break basically, and then 5 minutes do whatever you want. And then you do that 4 times. And then after that, you actually take a longer break of 15, 30 minutes. So that basically, by segmenting it into little bits, and then subsequently being able to have some, social media time or time to do whatever, like, just do a little bit of exercise, that actually allows you to really increase your productivity, because you're not trying to slog your way through. And just like, because after a while, it's just like trying to basically wash like mashed potatoes down a drain. Some of it's going to get through, but after a while, it's going to get clogged. And you have to have a lot of time to flow through, right? But I don't know. That's just me. I've been finding that's really helpful for me personally, just during the summertime, where I've been trying to do some things like learning, I've been trying to learn French on Duolingo. I'm doing some other skills like that. But I'm intrigued to see how it's going to look going forward. Now, do you have any other tips or tricks you would use or tell students to maybe stay organized on track?
Yeah, I mean, I've like, a few things that I kind of use on the regular. I like to make sure that I have on a good studying playlist for when I'm working. So, everybody's got different music that kind of speaks to them and helps them relax and stay focused.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm into the very like lo-fi instrumental downbeat sort of.
Nice.
I like that a lot. I feel like it really helps me focus. But everybody's got their thing. So I recommend playing around, seeing what helps you focus and what is easiest for you to study to. I personally can't study if there's anything lyrical, because my brain just gets like sucked into the lyrics, and I'm like,
start sitting there singing along, and like, oh wait, I need to be working right now. I totally understand that. It's like super serious task, and then one of my jams comes along, I'm like suddenly just belting it out. I'm like, what was I doing again?
What task was I on? I've forgotten. Speaking of tasks, trying to avoid multitasking. Oh, I'm notorious for trying to do like 7 things at a time. Humans aren't meant to multitask.
No, we all think
we're the multitasking heroes of the universe. Humans suck at it, guys.
No, exactly.
Like, don't try and do it. Try and have your one task, focus on your task. That's one of my biggest suggestions to people. Try not to multitask. We're actually really terrible at it.
Yeah, exactly. You can do one task at like 100%, or you can do 3 tasks at like 10%. It's actually incredible the degradation you have in actual task completion and quality of work when you try to do multiple things at once. Like, and actually, it's interesting you're saying that with the beats. I find the same kind of thing. Like, for me personally, I want to multitask. So actually, like, having something like this, like nice little lo-fi beats or some instrumentals, is actually a really nice way to go about it, because it's kind of taking a little edge, where it's like a little extra something to focus on when I'm not totally focusing in front of me, but it's not going to also distract me. It's just like that nice little beautiful white noise. It kind of keeps me in the flow of things, right? And sometimes you really need that. Like, that's why I always hate tests. It just seems like this weird sterile environment. You're sitting down, you can't talk to anyone, you have nothing, like, it's not really conducive to a real world environment. So it's just, I don't know. They've always bothered me personally. That's just my little diatribe there. But
I think curating an environment of productivity is so key. We can preach about organization and keeping ourselves organized. But unless you've got an environment in which you can be productive, the organization doesn't mean a whole lot. you know, and there's always going to be the things like everybody says, to be the most productive and organized, you got to eat right, you got to exercise. Yes,
Absolutely.
those things are important too. So let's not, leave those things out when
No,
we're
for
talking
sure.
about organization and productivity here.
Yeah.
But I think that for me personally, at least, the workspace is the
Yeah.
most key part of being productive and being organized.
Yeah, and part of the workspace obviously is the tools you're using. So it actually makes me think about so the apps you're talking about previously.
Yeah.
You want to tell me a little bit more about those?
Yeah, for sure.
I've been definitely more I'm a paper and pen kind of guy, and I've been trying to segment, trying to get away from that a little bit, but I haven't been able to find any that are really conducive to my style.
Yeah, so I've always been kind of a paper and pen girl myself, but there's nothing worse than going to try and find your to-do list and realizing you left it in your other bag. Or,
I know, God.
I hate that. I hate it.
Yeah.
So one of the apps that I use is a task manager called Todoist. And basically you can set up tasks for yourself, and you can put them on repeat. If it's something you've got to do every day, every week, every month, whatever, you can set a date and time for the deadline for these things to be done. You can set them up in projects so that you have a project, say, for math. Yeah. And then you can, in that separate project, list all of the things that you need to do.
And can you share it with other people or anything? Or just for you?
So you can definitely share your projects with other people.
Awesome.
And it's nice because you don't have to share your whole to-do list. You can individually share the projects. And I like that you can access it across various pieces of technology. So if I update my to-do list on my computer, it syncs to the to-do list on my phone. So I'm never worried about leaving it behind somewhere, which is handy to me because I'm notorious for that.
It's a dangerous thing, I know. For a lot of years, I couldn't have a nice cell phone until basically I grew up into the ability to not break my cell phones or lose them all the time. So I understand that. But so how it works is you have basically an account and stores the information online. So that's how it syncs across. Or?
Yeah, so Todoist has its own sort of cloud system that it syncs across on the internet. So I'm a big fan of the to-do list.
For sure.
I don't have enough brain cells to dedicate to remembering all of the things that I've got to do, and so I've got to write them down somewhere.
It's just not feasible sometimes too, especially if you're working somehow 2 work weeks in 1 work week. I can understand how you can't exactly remember that you are running low on milk and you need to go get some eggs before you go home. Those kind of things, when you're working that much, you're going to just kind of drop the ball, and I understand that. So having something like that, a little reminder, would actually be useful.
And the cool thing about the to-do lists too, I don't just use them for school or just for work. I use them for everything. Sure. Make the grocery list, share it with my husband. He can edit it. I can edit it. We can
That's actually really smart. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah. That's a really smart way to go about things. You could be planning a get together with friends. On one of the previous podcasts I did with Ellie, we were talking about ways to save money and kind of have some fun with cooking and having a community meal. So in this, you could use something like Todoist to basically kind of make a list of all the things you want to get and all the things you'll need, and you can share it with your friends, and then they could all just kind of pick things off the list, and you guys could have a fun little time together.
Yeah, so that kind of brings me into the other app that I like to use, which is Evernote. So with Todoist, I would kind of assign, we'll use your example for a community meal with your friends. I would assign the tasks in Todoist. So, you pick up the snacks, you pick up this, you pick up that other thing, make sure you bring this. But then Evernote is a note-taking app that you can share those as well. So that's where I would make a more specific grocery list and say, here it is, guys. Yeah. Once you've got something off of it, take it off.
Makes
or cross it off, or, do whatever it is that we want to do. And the nice thing again about Evernote is that you can break it into folders and stacks.
Okay.
So you can kind of keep school as one stack with all your different classes, and then you can keep your finances as their own stack with your budget and your debt and your everything in there. I use it for musings. Sometimes I just
want to write,
come up with a thought, and I'm like, oh, I got to remember to look into that later. So it's great. And actually, another really cool feature about Evernote is that it takes all kinds of file types. So not just writing, Like you can, oh, I found this cool little video. Whoop, I'm gonna zip that over to Evernote and watch it later. Or, like make yourself a voice recording or
That's
whatever you
really
want to do.
cool.
So I
Yeah.
think it's got a lot of functionality. It's really neat.
That's good functionality, and the ability to put that into stacks kind of stops it from being like one of those things that just basically just ends up being just an unorganizable file dump, which kind of goes counter to the process. So that's really good that it actually has the ability.
Yeah, for sure.
So
And I think those two things in conjunction with each other really help, for organizational purposes, being able to have set tasks and then also being able to have more details on your tasks and the things you need to get or do.
yeah, I think that's incredibly useful, especially like going forward, in a student life. Realistically, like there's a lot of things that people need to be doing. Like for new students that are maybe living away from home for the first time, it can be a very disorienting process. Like with just going to school in general, then having to live by themselves, do all these kind of things they're not used to doing, and juggling all other aspects of life. Or someone like me who's like mature student who basically already has set life patterns and car payments and all these other things. Something like Todoist is really helpful because then you can kind of, yeah, as you said, like make these little project files and just know what you're working towards at any given point and actually be able to categorize it. That's awesome. So
Yeah, for sure. So those are two I would recommend to everybody to kind of look at the tools that are out there
yeah,
and find a system that works for you. There's no one
yeah,
size fits all system for organization, but keeping yourself organized is so key to succeeding, especially in school. It's so busy. There are so many courses all at the same time. You've got tests, you've got papers to write, you've got assignments to hand in, you've got things, everywhere. It's so key to stay organized, right, Brian?
it's a hard thing to do and it is absolutely imperative. Like myself personally, so like right now I'm working as a server, and I've come from a kitchen background. So it's my first time serving, so I have an understanding of how restaurants work, but it's entirely different when you're out in front of people taking orders and like doing like that. So on a day-to-day basis, I've kind of found that I've made myself a little bit of a organizational sheet for when I go to tables, just to help take all this information down. Because you walk up to a table of 8 people, oh, they want this food, they want this food. If you're just going to scribble it down on a piece of paper, you can lose track quickly, and then suddenly people are pissed off because they're the wrong thing in the bill. So it's not just school. The day-to-day life, you have to be organized because it's just, it can get overwhelming really quickly if you're not careful.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else that's very important, we can discuss the tools and tips and tricks, but the most important thing really is building habits.
For sure.
So you can come up with a great organizational system, but if you don't use it, it's not going to do you any good. But
Yeah.
the more you use it, the more it becomes second nature, and becomes a habit. It won't take as much time. It's just something that you build in, and you'll stay organized all the time.
Yeah.
You won't have to worry about getting disorganized because it's just part of your day.
No, you're absolutely right. And I was actually reading something recently, basically, almost half our actions every day are habits. They're not necessarily decisions. They may have originally been decisions, but there are things that kind of become ingrained in us after time, after just repeatedly doing the same thing again. And I don't know, do you think it's possible to break habits? Do you think it's possible to develop new ones?
I think so. I mean, yeah, breaking negative habits is hard
Yeah.
because, they get ingrained into you.
Mm-hmm.
And the opposite is true of building new habits. It's difficult to build a new habit. Everything that's in your brain is telling you like, oh, this is too hard, it's too much effort. But if you can just stick with it and do it, once you no longer have to think about it, then it would be much harder to break it than to keep up with it.
Absolutely.
So I think, we can definitely do both. We can break those negative habits and we can develop good new habits.
I totally agree with that. And personally, I think one of the biggest things, just basically in being productive and building new habits, is having a growth mindset. Like being like, don't think that because you have been doing something, you're going to be continuing to do something. Like if you want to change, it is possible to change things. It can be hard, as you said, but honestly, in a way, it's like you have to enjoy the process. It's not just about the result, right? So like I've been considering going back to school for a while, but I want to get to the end. But then I actually got into school, I enjoy the classes. So it's not about the end as much as it is about the process. It's about developing these good habits of, waking up early, doing a little exercise, and going to school. I'm not waiting for the end result now. I'm enjoying the process. And I think that's a huge part of, honestly, like being organized too. Like you have to want to do it, and you can't just be getting organized for something. You have to be doing it for yourself, and you have to be doing it because you want to be organized. So
yeah, and you're right. Mindset is so key to the whole process.
Yeah.
And people I think sometimes get themselves into this loop of like, well, I'm a disorganized person, so that's just how I am, and that's how I'm going to be. But I promise you, it doesn't have to be that way. As a reformed, disorganized person, I promise you, it doesn't have to be like that. Yeah, you just have to want to make a change for yourself, and you just have to stick with it. I know it's hard sometimes. You're like, oh, I don't want to get up at 6:30 and go for a run. I
know.
Make dinner. I don't want, I don't want to, put all my tasks into my app. I don't want to get all my class notes ready. Like, sorry, but for the greatest success, you gotta make some sacrifices. But, yeah, just, you have to want to do it, I think.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that.
But also just don't limit yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to be who you've always been in that regard, I guess. Like if you have always been a disorganized person, you don't always have to be a disorganized person.
That's true. I totally agree with that. Like
changes.
People change for the good and for the better, and people also sometimes can't stay the same. It's undoubtable, but like I think if you want to be better at things, it is possible to get there. It'll take some work sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. So what if there's like one tip, one organizational trick that you absolutely couldn't do without, what would it be?
It's hard. Honestly, I think it's just build a bit of a framework and just kind of think about what you want to do first. Honestly, like for me, like a list is fine. And I actually, after you were talking about, I'm probably going to start using 2 lists and Evernote because they actually both seem really useful. But for me, kind of thinking through what I want to do in the next day, week is so integral to my success in the past couple of years, because it gives you time to kind of mentally go through the process and get yourself set for it in success and failure and just be ready, right? How about yourself?
Yeah, I would have to say my Sunday review is so important. If I had to only pick one of my organizational techniques, I would say the Sunday review has to be the most important, because knowing what's coming up and being able to plan it out and say, okay, this is what I need to do, this is how I'm going to execute, I've got to get this done this day, clear out your email boxes, make sure everything is all where it should be in files. I think it's so important. It only takes an hour, maybe 2 hours, but without it, I'd be completely lost.
Well, and doing it in an hour, 2 hours, it frees up a lot of other time and get things done. Whereas if you're not going to actually put things into the proper locations, like physically or digitally, it's going to take you a lot more time, sort of a lot more period, adds to your anxiety, and it decreases your actual functionality. And it's just, again, you don't have time for that in life, right? So taking the time to do that, I think is a really smart idea.
Yeah. So that would be my number one recommendation for sure.
I think it's a good place to stop for our talking organization today. Tiffany, do you have anything you want to shout out? Any social media? Anything you want to bring attention to?
Yeah. So, as always, guys, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. You can find us on YouTube as Voice Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at SA Voice Podcast. And you can listen to any of the episodes on SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, and Apple Podcast. So make sure that you all keep tuning in, because we do often give you opportunities to win prizes, and we've got special guests and all kinds of cool, helpful tips and tricks for school. So hopefully you have enjoyed this organizational podcast. Thank you so much for Bryan for joining me today.
Of course, thank you. It was your pod. I just came here and glad to be here. So thank you. I learned a lot today too, to be honest.
Amazing. Yeah. We're all here to learn, and hopefully we all keep learning. So.
All right. So this is Bryan signing off.
And Tiffany.
Have a good day, y'all.